Please help me welcome Frank Fellers.
I hear myself, that's good. Thanks. We live in a visual world. 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 I got to tell you, the first time I learned how visual things are, especially in business, is when I started my business. Now, this is the garage where I started my business, and that's my uncle on the left and my cousin. They were helping move me in. And even though I had a little bit of business, it wasn't really real until I actually had that building. And I know it doesn't look like much, but I was so proud of that little building right there. And I got my little sign, and I had my business cards. And you remember, once you got that sign, you got those business cards, you actually felt like you had a business. That's how I knew that the visual is extremely powerful. Now, which came first, the chicken or the egg? We ain't going to figure that out, so don't try to answer it. But what we are going to figure out is which came first between the word chicken and the actual chicken. And we're going to figure out which came first between the word tree and the actual tree. All right? So can anyone tell me what jugnal means? J-U-K-N-I-L. Can you tell me? Anybody? Ryan? Can't tell me? You can't tell me because it's not a word. And the reason why it's not a word is because you don't have a visual to tie it to. You got to understand, our brains, we think visually. And then we create words for the visuals that we see. So the chicken came first, and then we created a word for the chicken, right? And then the tree came first, and then we created a word for the tree. Have you ever noticed that you can remember people visually better than their names? And especially if they got something unique, like this guy with the mustache. You ever notice that? You think visually. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing with companies. What I found is that successful companies have strong visuals, okay? So I'm going to run through a little test here. I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm going to show you some visuals of some very successful companies, and I want you to tell me what the company is, okay? So what company is this? Or what organization? Dallas Cowboys. Good job. We're in Dallas. What company is this? Aflac. Okay, good, very good. And this company? Kentucky, yeah, KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. And this company? UPS, very good. And my favorite? Crown Royal. I like it with Coke, by the way. All right, so I learned how powerful raps were visually when I did my first rap. So I had seen this business, the rap business, kind of growing within my supply business. I'd seen a lot more supplies, and I got really excited about it. And I thought, man, I've just got to learn about this business. So for me, I got to do some hands-on. So I decided to wrap my truck, and this is a 99 F-250. This was a long time ago, but the first wrap I ever did was on this 99 F-250. And I wrapped it camouflage because I do a little bit of hunting. I thought, man, that'll be good for me. It took me 10 hours a day for 10 days, and I got it wrapped all by myself, and I learned a lot. But what I learned the most was when I started driving this vehicle, and it happened almost immediately. I mean, I'd go to McDonald's, and everybody would just be flipping out. I'd be, man, can I touch it? What is that, a paint job on and on? I mean, they went crazy. People were taking photographs. It's unbelievable. I felt like a rock star. And I had this hunting trip planned for it was real close to after I wrapped this. So I got real excited, and because I was going to take my wrap truck down to go hunting. So I go down to this southeast part of Oklahoma. I don't know if you guys know, in the Broken Bow area, Idabel area. Anyway, so I go down there and I go off out into a real remote area. It's about an hour down gravel roads. Then I got to travel about another hour down trails. And I'm out there all by myself, and I'm in this area where there's probably only about 3 people within a 5-mile square radius, right? So I'm excited. I get up early in the morning, and we're deer hunting. I'm deer hunting. And I find this trail. I park my truck next to this trail, and it's before dark. And those of you that deer hunt, you know you want to be ready right before, you know, the deer comes right about light time. And so I'm all excited. And then all of a sudden, these 2 hunters start walking up towards me. They're ruining my hunt. I'm going, what in the heck's going on here? And they want to know all about my wrap. True story. I knew right then, if a camouflage wrap vehicle, supposed to not even be able to be seen, can attract the only other 2 people in the county within 5 square miles, I knew that, my gosh, this is an unbelievable business and very visual. Have you ever noticed that we're not happy with things being solid color or white or black? We're never happy with these things being like this. Now, back in the 60s, when I was a kid, it dates me a little bit, this is all I could get was white tennis shoes. Now what can you get? Yeah, every color, every design you can possibly imagine. Things are constantly becoming different. And it's not a fad, it's a trend. And my dad, he says, you know, when he wanted a T-shirt, when he was younger, this is what you got. You got a white T-shirt. Now what's available? Every possible design you can imagine. At one time, if you had one tattoo on your arm, you were really different. You know what's coming up next. That's right. That's exactly right. You got to have something like this to be different. The other day, my daughter, she's 7 years, just turned 7. She wanted a soccer ball. I said, man, hey, this is going to be easy. Go down and get a soccer ball. And I go down there, and there's about 100 different styles and designs. And I end up getting a pink one. Wraps are different, and they fit this trend. They fit the trend that we want. Just like this wrap that stands out in this parking lot full of plain, boring, solid color painted vehicles. Walls can be different too. This is my bedroom wall before I wrapped it. And most walls look like this, right? Most walls, you go into homes, you go even offices, buildings. You know, it's a plain wall like this. It maybe has a frame painting or frame photograph. Well, I decided to scan that photo and wrap my wall and made it different. Wraps fit the trend. Need I explain this? Wraps fit the trend. Have you ever noticed that wraps are emotional? Anyone in the wrap business here? Have you ever had an emotional experience with a wrap? I mean, where somebody went crazy? You know, have you ever had that? Yeah, I've had a lot. Well, let me tell you, I decided to wrap, this is about 5 years ago, I decided to wrap our distribution wall in Tulsa. And I wanted to make it different, stand out, and I had no idea what was going to happen. And sure enough, we wrap it. It's right next to I-44, it's an interstate highway. It's 20 foot tall, 216 feet wide. We had newspapers call me, radio stations, what in the world this is. I had a citizen of Tulsa write me a 3-page typed letter. He was very, very unhappy with this wrap. He says we are doomed to failure. And I'm happy to report 5 years later, we're twice the size that we were at that time and extremely successful. So there's some benefits to sell wraps, right? They're visual, very strong benefit. They're different. They fit that trend. They're emotional, very important selling aspect. But the one I like the most, I've been in the sign industry for a long time. How many have been in the sign industry for a long time? I hate sign laws. How many of you have had to deal with sign laws? Sign ordinances. Right. There's not a lot of legislation on wraps. Quite frankly, I don't know how long it's going to last. I really don't. There's this movement through the United States trying to restrict the amount of signage, right? They're not, think about it, our country's not adding more places for us to put signs. They're constantly figuring out ways to restrict signage. That's why I love the wrap business. I love it because it gets signage and graphics into places never thought possible. Like this national park. You can literally drive a wrapped vehicle through a national park. Now, can you put a sign up in a national park? Hell no, you can't put a sign up in the national park. You cannot put a sign up in the national park. And like I said, I don't know how much longer it's going to take before we do start having some legislation, but we have very little. It's a great selling point, great thing to sell. You need to sell it now. All right, so I saw all these great benefits of the wrap and where it was going. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm a numbers guy. I mean, the wrap business is great. It's got a lot of benefits, but I'm a numbers guy. How big can this wrap business be? For me, I have to know. So we went to uscensus.gov. We found out that there was 87.4 million businesses and homes where you could do a wrap. So we said, hey, what if we just got 1% of that 87.4 million with a $2,000 wrap? How big a business would that be? 1.75 billion. So then we figured out from uscensus.gov, there's 250 million vehicles with 13 to 15 million being added each year. So if we did just 1% of that market with a $2,000 wrap, how big would that be? $5 billion. So $6.75 billion. That's pretty big business, right? That's the potential with just 1%. So how big is that? So when you compare it to the sign market, according to the latest information, is $4.6 billion. I knew by going through these numbers that this wrap market has a massive potential. A massive potential. And this is a market that's not being limited, right? The other market over here, our sign market, is trying to be restricted. Okay, so if you've decided you want to sell wraps, okay, you decide you want to sell wraps. Before you decide you want to sell wraps, I think the first thing you got to do is you got to look at the name of your company. You got to look at the name of your company and ask yourself, is the name of your company holding you back? Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. When I mention the word Volkswagen, what do you think of? Most people think of something like this, right? It's a bug or a small, well-engineered, inexpensive vehicle. Do you think of $100,000 sports cars when you think of Volkswagen? Do you? Did you know Volkswagen makes a $100,000 sports car called the Phaeton? How many people own the Phaeton? Is there anyone here that owns the Phaeton? Phaeton, look it up. It's been a dismal failure. Now, it's been well praised. It's a great car. But it's been a dismal failure. And you know why it's been a dismal failure? Because when people think of Volkswagen, they don't think of $100,000 cars. And I'd be willing to bet that if you did get $100,000 to buy a car, you're probably not going to buy a Volkswagen. So names can impact your ability to sell wraps. Does anybody know Ralph Lipschitz? Ralph Lipschitz. Do you know him? Yeah, you do. A lot of you do. Do you know him? Who is he? Ralph Lipschitz. Does anybody know him? Yeah, he's not up there. Ralph Lipschitz. See, you actually do know him. His name's Ralph Lauren. He built one of the most successful apparel companies in the world. Now, how many of you think he could have done that if he wouldn't have changed his name to Ralph Lauren? How many of you would have wore a Ralph Lipschitz dress? Our catalog is very visual. Those of you that know our company, my picture's in that catalog a lot, isn't it? Got to tell you. But before we changed the name of our company, what caused me to change the name of the company was I knew I wanted to focus on the wrap business. I knew it was the future. I'd seen all these great benefits. And so when I looked at my name, or heard my name, Ameriband, I knew that name meant for a lot of people banner-oriented supplies. So I knew I needed to change the name. We changed the name to Fellers. Now, What do you think happened when we changed the name to Fellers? Can anyone tell me? What do you think happened? Decline sales? Anything else? We got a lot of complaints. Does people think we got complaints? Yeah, I got a lot of complaints. I got a letter from one very good customer that said, Frank, please humble yourself and change your name. You're going to destroy your company. What do you think actually happened to the sales? The sales actually improved. Our company actually improved with the name change. Now, I'm not telling you that you can't sell wraps under whatever name you have. Okay, I'm not telling you that. There's a company, McDonald's, that's a great example of a company that has proven that even though it meant hamburgers, they added fish sandwiches and they sell millions and millions of fish sandwiches, don't they? So there's an example. You can have a company name that doesn't necessarily mean wrap, and you can still sell wraps, but who sells more fish in the restaurant business here in the U.S.? Red Lobster. Yes, very good. And even though McDonald's sells a lot of coffee, who sells more coffee? Starbucks. All I'm saying is this, is that think about your name. Your name does have an impact on how much wraps you're going to sell. If someone were to ask me, what is the single most important, biggest thing that has enabled you to be successful, Frank? So I become a multimillionaire and built this big company. So what if I could name one thing that was the most important thing, what would that be? And the answer is I've been able to focus on one thing, okay? And I've been able to have a name that meant that one thing, right? He who chased two rabbits gets no rabbit. So let's say you're okay with your name, all right? You're okay with your name. You're fine with the direction you're going to go with your name. How do we sell wraps on a daily basis? What's the mechanism for selling wraps? What's the best mechanism? Well, I got to tell you, I spent a lot of time selling wraps in the last several years. I've spent a lot of time watching my customers. We have the largest group. If you went through our customer base, we have more wrap customers than anybody else in the world. All right? And we have some of the largest wrap customers in the world. And so I watch what these guys do, and girls. I watch what you all do. We see what you buy. We see what's successful and what's not. I'm trying to build the business out there, so I've experimented with all these ways to sell wraps. Several ways. And what I've come up with is a process for selling wraps that I call the visual selling process. Okay? Made up of 4 components. The first one is you got to get over your fear of being criticized, all right? And my dad, his name's Frank Fellers also, so I'm Frank Fellers Jr. And his dad, my granddad, named Bud Fellers. Now, Bud Fellers named my dad in 1942 after FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So I have a special little connection with him, right? So what's Franklin FDR's famous quote? The only thing we have to, and his head moves, is fear itself. Very famous. As a matter of fact, it's supposed to be the most famous American quote of all time. Now, they had a lot to fear in 1933. My granddad had a lot to fear. The country had a lot to fear. They're getting ready to go to war. That was fear. So we have to overcome the fear to visually sell. And visually selling aggressively, there's a lot of chance for criticism, okay? Now think about this. Somebody at Aflac made the decision to represent their entire company with a duck. Imagine the fear that they had before they did that. Someone at that liquor company made a decision to wrap their liquor bottle with a purple towel. That took some guts. And I'm sure there was a lot of criticism. I really do understand criticism. And I understand fear. And when we did our catalog, when we started putting my picture in the catalog, I got to tell you, I was scared to death of putting my picture in the catalog. And I got to tell you, we get a lot of criticism for visually advertising, visually marketing. We get a lot of criticism. I've got one letter from a customer that's framed in my office because it motivates me. He said, "You are a stupid, redneck idiot." That's what he said. The reality is that our catalog is remembered more than anybody else's catalog in this industry, and our sales have improved, I think, better than everyone's. There's no public companies to know that for sure, but we've been extremely successful with visual marketing, visual selling. Okay, so you got to overcome the fear of criticism to market and sell visually, okay? The second component to visual selling, you got to hire salespeople. There's lots of ways to sell, but what looks to us that's working the best, and what I've experienced that works the best, is somewhere in your organization, you've got to have a personal selling effort. And that effort has to be supported with visual aids. Now, a wrapped vehicle or wrapped wall, wrapped item is something that's a great visual aid. Your company also has to have a strong visual so your company's remembered. You've got to visually support those salespeople or you when you walk in through that door and call on those customers. Now, why do I think personal selling is working? And by the way, I live in a wrapped world personally, me. I've got a Cadillac, a truck, a Ferrari, a GTO. I drive all those. I'm known as the wrap guy at my kids' school. I'm getting called by parents all the time. I've got a boat that's wrapped. I've got a horse trailer that's wrapped. Most of my home's wrapped. I've got motorcycles that are wrapped. I live in a wrap selling world, and I'm constantly selling wraps. We've tried all kinds of things. Tried Google AdWords. I was on a radio thing with my brother for I don't know how long, trying to generate business. We've tried, excuse me, we've tried selling efforts, television, multiple things. What seems to work from our perspective the best is a personal selling effort supported with visual aids. Now, let's say you can't afford a salesperson, all right? Just you. Well, here's the next best thing. How many of you drive wrapped vehicles? Okay. How many of you, your spouse drives wrapped vehicles? How many of you, your mom drives wrapped vehicles? This is my mom. Right here, my mom drives, this is one of the vehicles she drives on a daily basis. So this is my suggestion. If you can't afford to hire a salesperson, then do the next best thing. Is the average salesperson costs about $50,000 a year plus expenses, okay? The average cost of a wrap, like a vehicle wrap, is about $2 a square foot. That's materials and ink, plus labor, another $2, so close to $3, $4. So it's going to be around $1,000, okay? You could literally have 50 wraps out there for the price of a salesperson. That's what I think I think you need to do. I think there's probably people that you know, relatives, employees, friends, maybe even some customers, that will drive a wrapped vehicle or have something wrapped and sell for you. That would be the caveat. You'd have to say, hey, I want to wrap this, but can you sell something? I'm telling you, they will sell something for you. That's how powerful wraps are. Third component of visual selling. Third component. You've got to have leaders in your reference bag. Okay? Got to have leaders in your reference bag. What do I mean by that? Well, the other day, I went with my kids into Target. Okay? And we walk out of there with this whole basket load of clothes from Shaun White. The Shaun White deal right here. Anyone know who Shaun White is? Yeah. Shaun White is a famous snowboarder, very successful. My kids love him, and we had to get all these clothes. Now, Shaun White, you know, a red-headed kid, long hair like that, that's a pretty strong visual, right? We probably wouldn't have walked out with any clothes if it didn't say Shaun White on there. And that's what I'm trying to say is that leaders enable you to sell more. People want to follow leaders. Leaders sell things for you. And I'll try to give an example from a wrap side. If you think that plumbing trucks would be a great market, you know, get all the plumbing trucks, you probably need to get the leading plumbing company first and do whatever it takes to get that leading company. Because people follow the leaders. And leaders give your salespeople credibility, okay? Now, your salespeople may know everything about wraps. They may know that, you know, all the exposure of every traffic, you know, all the traffic exposure per street. They may know the cost of yellow pages versus wraps. They may know, you know, how much billboards cost, the average billboard cost. They may know all these things about how to fight, but they don't have any credibility if they don't have a reference that's a leader. Having a reference as a leader gives your salespeople credibility. Quite frankly, even if they tell the truth, if they don't have a leader, there's no credibility. So you're basically tying your salespeople's arms behind their back if you don't have a reference of number one, of leaders in your community for them to fight the battle with. All right, so the fourth part of visual selling, fourth component of visual selling is, there you go, numbers, effort. So I want to explain what I mean. Is you can get over your fear. You can hire all these slew of great salespeople, have the best salespeople. You've got leaders. But if you don't have this fourth component, you're not going to be successful. The fourth component is effort and numbers. So remember that picture of my garage where I started a company? Well, when I started my company, first thing I did is I went out there and I sold personally. And I worked my tail off. And I called on all of these companies. And lo and behold, not everybody just decided to say, hey, Frank, here you go. Here's your business. So I was suffering. I was starving to death, actually. Thank God that my wife at the time worked at Pizza Hut because she brought home all these, old pizzas and things that people didn't buy. Yeah, seriously, that's how we lived. So I was starving to death, literally starving to death. But I learned, and I've continued to learn this over and over again, that whatever you think it's going to take, it takes a whole heck of a lot more effort, okay? And Bob Weber, who's a friend of mine, anybody know Bob Weber besides his sister? Anybody know Bob Weber? Bob Weber is a guy that you guys will really like. If you don't know him, you need to meet him. He's a guy like us, started with nothing, built Sign Business magazine, several magazines, this trade show, and had a little screen printing company, started off and built into this wonderful company. Just like us, great guy. This is what he told me the other day. He was quoting from someplace else, I'm sure. This is what he said. He goes, Frank, did you know the average unsuccessful salesperson fails after the 4th try? The average successful salesperson is successful after the 11th try. I mean, look at the span of effort difference. I've learned that exact same thing at our company. Over and over again, this is my little rule. If you think it's going to take 100 calls to get an order, multiply it times 10. It's probably going to take 1,000. Okay, any of you trying to start a new wrap business? Anybody at all? Or maybe get into wrap business? Okay, this is for you, but it's also for everyone else. You'll probably relate to this. What I've learned is that any new effort, whether it be a new business, new initiative in your company, sell wraps, it's probably going to take 2 years before you even break even. I know that's not what you want to hear, but it's the reality. Even to this day, we open about 3 to 4 new locations each year. It takes us, on average, 2 years before we break even. On average, it takes us 3 years to make a profit. So you got to put in a tremendous amount of effort to sell wraps. All right, So I want to end my presentation with a story about my grandmother. Now, this is my grandmother. I call Nana. She's 92 years old. Okay. Now, my grandmother, she means a lot to me. She's very important. To tell you how important she is, the night before I started my business, started Ameriband, or whatever the name we were, the night before I started my business, I went to my grandmother and I asked her. I said, Nana, thinking about starting my business. What do you think? I was scared to death what she said. I thought she was going to say no. She said yes. Very supportive. So last year, when my grandmother told me she was thinking about going to a home, I said, Nana, I said, why don't you live with me at the ranch? Come on, please. And she said yes. So to celebrate her coming, I said, man, I want to wrap something. So, oh, exactly. So I wanted to wrap outside her bedroom, the hallway. Now, in her old house, she used to have all these pictures on the hallway, and I wanted to do something kind of like that, but I wanted to wrap it. And I didn't tell her exactly, but I wanted all these photos. And Zach, are you here? How many photos we end up getting? Okay, so we got 200 or 300 photos, all the way from great-great-great-grandparents down to today, okay? Wrapped the wall, didn't tell her, and then she walked in the door. She opened the door, and she started bawling, crying. She started bawling, crying. Now, can you put a price on that? I will put our product, our wrap product, I'll put our wrap product up against anybody's product anywhere in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, we sell the most exciting visual product the world's ever seen. Thank you very much.